wanted to tell you about an awesome resource, and it is our Discord channel. So on our Discord, we have an entire community devoted to Adobe Character Animator. So if you're stuck along the way, either myself or someone in the community can help you out with any questions you may have along the way. As well as we also just added a section called Look at This Thing. And the purpose of that channel is to post anything that you've built that isn't something you're like going to post to YouTube. It's a section to celebrate in these small wins. So whatever you're working on right now in this series, as you follow along, go and post it there. It's the perfect thing to show off, to say, hey, look, I learned a new thing, and we can all go, hey, that's awesome. So be sure to check out this community. There's a ton of other features, such as free resources, templates, hand packs, mouth packs, collaboration sections, blank puppet templates, tutorials for voice acting, cleaning up your audio, and much, much more. It's definitely worth your time to come check it out just for the freebies alone. So I hope to see you there. So by now you've selected one of the building methods and you have your rig built out and you're ready to go on to recording. So the first step is, if you're going to record your own audio, what I do is I record it in Adobe Audition. I have Adobe Audition opened here, and I've recorded a short little commercial about how important breakfast is. And I'm going to show you how to clean your audio up for animating. So what we're going to do is we're going to zoom in right here at the start, and you'll notice we left some dead space as our recording. Let's listen here.
This show brought...
So you can hear that I left a little dead space, and that's actually extremely important. We're going to highlight a little bit of this dead space, and we're going to right click, and we're going to capture noise print, and then I press Control A to select it all, and I go to Effects, Noise Reduction Process, and click Apply. And this will get rid of most of the background noise if any fans are going on in the background. And now you'll notice if we play it through, it sounds a lot quieter at the beginning. You do have to be careful. This can mess with your audio. It can clip out some of your words. So I recommend double checking it. Once we've done that, we're going to jump over into Premiere Pro. Once you get into Premiere Pro, we're going to create a new project. We are going to name it, Transcript. We're going to click Create. And now that you have that done, you're going to find your audio file that you just recorded. I dropped mine in CHPuppets Tutoring. And we're going to drag and drop this in to our timeline down here. Once it's in your timeline, we can go to our text window. If you don't see that, you can go to Window and select Text. We're going to create a transcript. So click on Transcript and Transcribe. This show brought to you in part by breakfast. Breakfast, it's important. Eat it now. That's perfect. That's exactly what I said. So if it does not say the exact thing you said, I think it's important to leave it alone. Don't edit. Like if this said... eat it how instead of eat it now, I would leave that because it's what it sounds like, and this entire process is comparing what it sounds like to what the transcript says it is. So it's important to leave the spelling errors in for this purpose. Now we're going to come over to captions. We're going to create captions from transcript. And now we are going to export an SRT file. We're going to drop this in my tutoring. And now we can close out of Premiere. I usually don't bother saving because we're done with that. Now we're going to come into Character Animator here. We're going to go to our project panel. And we need to drop that audio in. So here's the audio file. We're going to copy that in. Then if you select your audio file in your project panel, you'll notice over here you have a white transcript window. Now we could type it out but it's better to just use the transcript we just created. So we're going to locate that. Breakfast SRT. That's our transcript. And you'll see it actually has time mapping, so it knows the exact second when something was said, which makes it extremely accurate. So now what we can do is we can drag this audio file into our timeline and make sure we have lip sync selected on our puppet. In this case it is. It's the only thing on. If you have any extra red dots like face, go ahead and turn that off. We only want the lip sync to be armed. And then holding shift, you want to select Professor K and breakfast.wav, or whatever your audio file is. And now you come up to timeline, and the first thing we're going to do is compute lip sync take from scene audio. After that's generated, we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to do audio and transcript. I want you to notice something between the generated audio and the audio with transcript. The transcript has a lot more going on, whereas the audio does not. So let's compare them. We're going to turn this one off first by just simply deleting it, and then we're going to press play.
This show brought to you in part by Breakfast. Breakfast, it's important.
That did not look good at all. Now this is with the transcript.
This show brought to you in part by Breakfast. Breakfast, it's important. Eat it now.
Now you'll see it's fairly accurate right up until the end.
Eat it now.
We would want to alter that. But the reason that I generate in the one below is occasionally I find this happens more often if you have a heavy, thick accent that you don't enunciate your words a lot with this character or for this scene. I find that the lip sync generation with transcript will miss sections that are heavily accented or spoken too quickly. I find that this upper section here, with the transcript, will oftentimes skip over anything heavily accented or spoken too quickly. So in that case, it's nice to have a net underneath to work from. So say that this eat it now is just completely butchered. What's this one look like?
Eat it now.
That doesn't look as good, but if this didn't generate in at the end, if it just didn't generate it at all, we'd get a little message right up here that says transcript failed for this section or something similar. So in that case, we have something underneath to work with. And I want to show you how to work with that. So we're going to zoom in here and we're going to build this out.
Eat it now.
I want to scrub until I hear the beginning of the E. Right there. So we're going to go eat. Right there he says eat it. So in these two sections he has to say eat it. So if you hold Alt, you'll see we get a little razor blade icon. We can use this razor blade to cut in, and I'm going to cut in 2 spots. And I'm going to change this second E to a D. Eat. And then this is going to be an E and then D. So we're going to go ED, ED. See, eat it. So now if we scrub it, that looks good. And then we want to have the now. The now goes out to about here. And we need to cut into this for now. So you can see here we've cut into it 4 times. And we're going to change it. It has E, it, n, o, ooh. And then I'm going to have that ooh go all the way out now. So let's scrub and see what it says. That looks a lot better. This is a little more like an ah, and then an o, and then an ooh. So you see here, eat it nah. Ooh, let's scrub and see. That looks much more accurate. And let's compare it to what was generated.
Eat it
In all honesty, I like mine more. So that's an example of where you can go in and edit these visemes. So once you have your lip sync completely cleaned up, we're going to go on to the next section, which is arm movement. So we're going to disable lip sync. We're going to turn on draggers and triggers. And then you can see here that we can drag and position our arms accordingly. So let's listen through this quick recording and determine what we're going to do to animate this little 8-second clip.
This show brought to you in part by Breakfast. Breakfast, it's important. Eat it now.
Okay.
This show brought to you.
So we're going to start off by putting his hands on his hips. And if we come up to timeline, record a 1-frame take, once we put our hands on our hips, you'll see you get 2 bars here. Now I would like to point out that record a 1-frame take has a hotkey of Control 1, and I used to use Control 1 often. Anymore, I find Control 1 is extremely buggy, and if you move 2 limbs, you'll see here that we have 2 bars, 1 for each limb that we moved. But oftentimes, when we use Control 1, we'll only get 1 of the 2 bars that shows up. It's not every time you see it worked there, but oftentimes it does do that. So I have been using the timeline record a 1-frame take. Zooming into our scene here using our mountains, we're going to extend our takes out, and you see we moved 1 at a time. We can actually change that by going to timeline, link recording selection. And now you see if we select one, we select them both. And that's handy for when we're working in these large sections like this. So we're going to go ahead and drag this out. You'll see here our arms are at our hips, but they're going to snap. See how they just snap to his hips? We want him to place them on his hips. So you see the white square in the corner. We're going to drag that out about 2 or 3 frames. We have an expression in this software, just get it there. We don't want to drag it out really long and then have him take forever to put his arms up. We want it to happen naturally.
This show brought to you in part by Breakfast.
Okay. But that one animation isn't enough. We want to stack our animations. So let's say
This show
brought to you. We're going to, right when he goes to say in part, we're going to have him lift his arm up. So right around here, we're going to have him put his hand up. Let's see. Let's refresh. And put his hand up right there. And now you'll see we blended these takes together.
This show brought to you in part by Breakfast.
And we're going to select the bottom one. You can do that by clicking and dragging over the single one or turning off the link recording selection. And then you can select one. And we're going to drag the bottom one out so the animations happen together.
This show brought to you in part by Breakfast.
And we're going to extend these 2 out all the way to here. Now I know what you're thinking. His hands don't look right, but don't worry, that's going to come next.
By Breakfast.
So finishing out this animation, we're going to have him bring his arm back down. And then we're going to have him finish by returning back to arms at the sides. And let's see how that looks.
This show brought to you in part by Breakfast. Breakfast, it's important. Eat it now.
Okay, and at the end, I'm gonna have him kind of get a little like angry, because he really is upset that you're skipping breakfast. So what we're going to do to convey that is use his expressions in his face later on. But now we're gonna move on to the hands. So go ahead and turn draggers off, and we're just gonna have triggers on. Now coming over to our hotkeys on this character, I have his hands. Since we have so many hands, I don't have a hotkey for every hand. So instead I press Z and X to turn on the hands, and then I'll timeline, record a 1-frame take, and then drag our hands out. Did we get both hands? Looks like we only got one hand. Which hand is it? Okay. So that bug even manages to happen up here. Let's record a 1-frame take. There we go. And now we have both hands. And now if we hold Alt, you see that we can cut in to our hands here, which we'll want to move that one there. And then right about here. And then we'll change this to like hand 7. And now you'll see. That's not the hand we want, but you get the general idea. There we go. And then for hand 1, we actually want default. So now let's see it.
This show brought to you in part by breakfast. Breakfast, it's important. Eat it now.
And at the end, we want them to go back to default. And to do that, we can just have them end here. And on hand 1, I want default. And hand 1, I want default. So now, when he goes down, he puts his arms down. It's in his natural position. Now we're going to move on to animating the movement, making his head and body move. So to do that, we're going to turn on face. And you'll see that he moves with my movements. And now the goal is to adjust your weight per arm. And the way that I was taught this is when you put your arm out, you're going to adjust your weight backwards the opposite way to keep your center of gravity center. So obviously we wouldn't leave this character lean all the way out here and have his arm come up. If we were to turn on draggers for an example, we wouldn't have him go like this unless he's really reaching for something. You know, this looks like, oh, I can almost get it. But really what we would want if we were talking and we were saying the projections for next quarter looks like, see that he would always lean the opposite way that his arm comes out. So keep that in mind. And the way to keep that in mind is imagine there's a line going straight down the center of your character. And if that line leans too far, your whole character will fall over. So keep that line balanced. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn draggers off and refresh our scene. And we're going to do a little recording. It's always good to recalibrate. See, my character reset in a real nice, comfortable position. And we are going to record.
This show brought to you in part by breakfast. Breakfast, it's important. Eat it now.
I didn't like the ending. We're going to do one more take on that. Oh, and let's make sure we turn off our microphone. You'll notice here that we have audio coming in. We don't want that. So turn the microphone off, and we're going to do one more take.
This show brought to you in part by breakfast. Breakfast, it's important. Eat it now.
There we go. And now let's watch that through.
This show brought to you in part by breakfast. Breakfast, it's important. Eat it now.
One more thing I like to add that brings a lot of life to a character is eye gaze. So we're going to turn face off. We're going to turn eye gaze on. And you can see that I have mine set to mouse and touch input with snap off. By default, it'll be camera input with snap on. So I change that. Mouse and touch input with snap off. Looks like this. And the default looks like this. And you kind of have to, it's hard to operate the character while also looking around the room. And the snap just looks, to me, unnatural. So we're going to go mouse and touch input with snap off, and then we're going to record. And remember, you look up and to the left when you're thinking, up and to the right when you're planning for the future. We always say left is looking to the past, right is looking to the future.
This show brought to you in part by breakfast. Breakfast, it's important. Eat it now.
I would have been a little more center with my pupils there at the end. They're kind of a little off center. But other than that, that's a really good cut.
This show brought to you in part by breakfast. Breakfast, it's important. Eat it now.
Okay, so now we're going to want our character to do some walking. So we're going to select all of this and scoot it over so we can have our character walk on. Obviously, we need the Professor K extended back. Okay, so in order to make this character walk, we're going to go to Triggers. And we're also going to need to turn on anything that says walk. I also recommend turning on Lim IK, but when they're this darker red, I think that means that they're going to be on and recorded regardless if they're armed or not. So here we have our walk enabled, and if we come up to our triggers, we can turn on N and M as our walking angles. Let's see here, so there's N and there's M. So obviously we're going to use M, and we're going to record a little walk. Here we go. So we're going to walk until about 3 seconds. And I actually like to record extra, and I'll show you why. So here we go.
This show brought to you in part.
Okay, so we're going to redo that one more time. So we're going to press M to turn on the walking angle, because that is the hotkey associated with my puppet. We're going to start walking, and then we're going to record, and we're going to go past when he starts to talk.
This show brought to you in part.
Perfect, right there. So you see, we recorded extra, and that's because later on, like I might be like, oh, he walked on way too fast, and I want to make him walk longer. I don't have to re-record it. Or if later on I'm like, oh, he's way too slow, we can shorten it up. So what we do here is we're going to shorten it up to right about the 3 second marker. I think that'll be comfortable. Maybe 3.5 seconds. And then what we're going to do is we're going to turn off our triggers. We're going to turn on transform. And we're going to open it up. You'll notice there's a lot of options in here. We're going to focus on position X and position Y. Clicking on the stopwatch icon for position X will add a little diamond to your timeline. Let's zoom in on that. You can see over here we have this little diamond. This diamond is a keyframe, and it's currently at position 107. That's the center. That's where we want our character to stop moving. So we're going to move this diamond to about the end of our walk cycle. And then we're going to, with our timeline still at 0, change our position X to be off screen. You'll see it created a second diamond. So that is a keyframe saying we're going from this position X to this position X. And when it gets to this position X, we have the right profile ending, which if we were to drag this out, we could hold Alt and cut into the right profile and select frontal. So we have right profile ending and frontal beginning. Watching that.
This show brought to you.
Beautiful. Now for walking, you can change, if you come down into your walk, you can change your elbow angle, your arm swing, your arm angle, your elbow bend, all of those. I don't want to go into too much detail. They all work exactly like Transform did. So we can change our elbow angle to be more like extreme. So when we walk, they're behind us now, or we can go the other way with it, and they'll look a little more in front of us. You can do that, play with all of these settings, and remember, if there's something you ever don't like, you can click the X. And if there's something you do like you're like, oh, his walking angle always needs to be at -4, remember, you can click this arrow up here with the puppet next to it to push this parameter to your default puppet. So now we have walking, and he stops. But let's add in some head angles. We have 2 and 3. We're going to come to 0. We're going to come to 3 seconds, right where he stops, and we're going to press button 2. Oh, we need triggers armed. Silly me. Let's arm our triggers. Now we're going to press button 2, and then we're going to timeline. Oops. Button 2, and then we're going to go to timeline, record a 1-frame take, and we're going to extend that out, and I'd like to back it up to 0. And now we can cut into it just like we did the lip sync and the walking by holding Alt, getting our laser blade, and clicking where we want the cuts to be. Okay, so now we can come in and we can change, say, this left quarter to frontal, and then this left quarter to right quarter. Maybe he looks around right here, and then frontal again. Oh, let's reverse these. Let's go right quarter on this one and frontal on this one. Okay, so now he'll do some head turns. Let's do right quarter on that one, left quarter on that one. And now you'll see he does some head turns.
This show brought to you in part by Breakfast. Breakfast, it's important. Eat it now.
And you can see how he pops, like right there. That can be fixed by dragging these squares on your camera takes. We're going to do it to the one above it as well. And that'll stop that popping from happening. See, now it'll ease up. The last step we want to do is add in a camera, but cameras work best with a background. So we drag and drop this background file I just happened to Google into our project panel, and then close Professor K in our timeline, and drag and drop our background below Professor K. And you can see you can use Transform to scale it the appropriate size. So now he walks off screen and turns, and he has a background behind him. Now we're going to focus on the camera. We're going to go to Scene, New Scene Camera. And you'll see here under your webcam you have camera track behaviors as opposed to your puppet behaviors. And this is just a stripped down version of Transform. You have your position X, position Y, zoom, and rotation if you ever feel like using that. So what we're going to do, there's also a mouse and touch input which lets you click and drag. That can be a nice feature. I have yet to use it. So going on further, we want to say when he stops and talks, we want our camera to zoom in on him. So what we're going to do is we're going to click our stopwatches here, and we're going to click it on position X, position Y, and zoom. And you'll see that we have them in our timeline now. And these particular angles, the position X, position Y, and zoom, we want to be at position 0 in your timeline. Then right when he stops walking, right there, that's when we'll zoom in. So now we're going to select our zoom here, and we're going to zoom in, and we're going to adjust our position Y, and then we're going to adjust our position X. And now you'll see it slowly zooms in on him.
This show.
But maybe we don't want it to zoom. Maybe we want it to cut. In that case, we can highlight these first ones by clicking and dragging over the 3 triangles, diamonds, the 3 diamonds. And then we right click and we select toggle hold keyframe. And now watch what it does.
This show.
Now it's a cut. So that's how you can do a cut or a zoom in Adobe Character Animator. There's also ways to create triggerable shots. That's useful mostly for live content. It creates a hotkey. It's also useful if you have shots you typically use a lot with monologuing or news anchors, things like that. In the next video, we're going to go over exporting. So be sure to stay tuned.